First stop, they've assured me they are totally done with jet lag and perfectly functional now. So, no, they just got back Thursday night from Spain and are here in the U.S. for several months on furlough, reporting to some churches. They've got family in the area that they're visiting this week as well. So excited to have them here. Let me open us up in a word of prayer, and then the Belascos are going to come and just update us on their ministry and share some stories and blessings from their field, and then be thinking about any questions that you might have for them, because here in a few minutes they'll have a time to answer any questions about them and their ministry. But we're excited to have them here. Our church has supported them for 8 or 9 years, probably, something like that, and they've been doing a fantastic job in Spain. So, Lord, I pray that you would bless the service this morning. Thank you that the Belascos can be here. Bless those who are here, those who are still coming in the worship service. I pray that all that is done today, the singing, the preaching, the teaching, testimonies, prayer, that all would be glorifying to your name, that you would be lifted up and honored. And we pray this in Jesus' wonderful name. Amen. Come on ahead.
We are Arnold and Leslie Belasco. We come out of the city of Tucson. The Lord called us to be missionaries in the country of Spain. We were discipled in Desert Springs Baptist Church by Pastor Gary L. Berry. And it was when the Lord worked in our hearts to move into full-time ministry. And it was a short time after that I resigned my position with my father's company, and we moved from here to go into seminary, and we went through that. The first semester of seminary, the Lord put Spain on our heart. He put Spain in my heart, and I asked him to talk to my wife, because I said, Lord, you know that Leslie will follow. As long as I'm following you, she's going to follow me. And God, she's going to have difficult time just as I will have difficult time on the field. So I want for her to have this experience too. Lord, would you speak to my wife's heart? And so he did that about a year and a half after that petition, and we were just finishing up our time in seminary and such, and then went out on deputation in 2008. Took 2.5 years to do that. Visited around 210 churches in that time, full time on the field with our 2 teenage children. We went to the field there in 2011. It was 2011. I'm gonna say what comes to my mind, and she's going to put in all the corrections and details, if you don't mind. And rather than splitting up our time, I think we'll just kind of do it together, if that's okay with you all. And so, now having 13 years, going on 13 years in the country of Spain, we arrived with not knowing the Spanish language. My father is fluent in Spanish. He just didn't see the need to teach his children Spanish, which I'm kind of glad of, because the Latin Spanish is a bit different than the Spain Spanish. And so we counted a privilege to have been able to take our training and such in the Spanish language. Did you hear that? To learn proper Spanish. We don't want to offend anybody, but I do like jabbing my father and tell him that he has corrupted the language a bit, and so we have fun doing that. But I share with folk that when we got there, the preacher's toolbox is full of words. We need to be able to communicate well, thus saith the Lord. And when you arrive and you have no tools in your toolbox, it's proof that there's a long road ahead. And so still, even today, we're trying to fit more tools and more tools within that toolbox. And Leslie and I, we're not linguists. Leslie's far better at than I am, and our kids even more so. And so we had our daughter on the field with us 3 years.
3 years. Mm-hmm.
And then our son was with us for 5 years. And they're doing well. We're excited to be with our daughter here at the end of the month. She's going to graduate from medical school, and she'll go into pediatrics and move from the thriving metropolis of El Paso, Texas, to Hartford, Connecticut. And our son lives in Pensacola, Florida, as a mechanic or a technician on the T6 as a civilian job, and then he's a Marine in the reserves, and he works on the Osprey. We'll just start with a couple stories that we have about the country about our ministry, and then of course we want to have it open for questions. But let me say this: if there comes a question to your mind, and if you want to ask something during the time that we're sharing, just throw your hand up, and we can just do that. We don't have to be super formal, I don't believe, and just ask the questions as they come to your mind. Share a little bit about our ministry dynamic. It's a bit different than a North American work in that, while yet America is a melting pot, right, of multinationality, ours is as well. We're there in Spain ministering to Spaniards, but we have just such an influx of migrants from the Latin countries that we have in our church. Colombians and Hondurans and Venezuelans and Puerto Ricanians and just from all over Latin America, north and south, and then of course some from the European countries as well. And let me tell you, it's has become a bit of a work of art to be able to communicate well with the person that is standing before you, because you cannot talk to Colombian the same way that you talk to a Spaniard. If you're small talking, that's one thing. But if you're ministering to them and leading them in spiritual matters, you need to talk to a Colombian different than you will talk to a Spaniard, or you need to talk to someone from Honduras different than you would talk to someone from Colombia. And it has been a challenge for us a bit. Do you have any examples of that?
Examples? Well, I don't know. Spaniards are very straightforward and very brusque in the way that they speak, and so you can speak very plainly and pointedly with them. But some of the Latino American countries, they're a little bit more sensitive, and so you have to speak much softer with a lot more love and cariño with them than you do necessarily with a Spaniard. But yeah, it's amazing. We have family, we have one family that's really multicultural within their family. The man's from Armenia. His wife is from Bolivia. They have two daughters. One daughter is Bolivian Chinese, and the other daughter is Bolivian Armenian. And so within their family, it's just like a multicultural ball of wax right there in itself. But we have people, like you said, from Puerto Rico, from Colombia, from Honduras, from Dominican Republic, from
It's difficult to name
Peru
all
and
of the
Ecuador,
countries.
Mexico. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just really, really a mix.
Yeah.
Then we have a French guy within Europeans. We had a French guy, and who else? Oh, we have a Uruguayan now.
Yeah.
But it's really a joy when a Spaniard comes to know Christ, because they are definitely the minority. In our Spanish church, the Spaniards are the minority, because most of them come from a very closed off to anything other than Catholicism kind of culture. So it's a joy when we had a Spaniard lady saved just last week. Her and her boyfriend is from Uruguay, and she's Spanish, and so that was a joy for that.
Yeah.
To see that.
We do rejoice. I was attending service this morning at 3:30 in the morning there, and I didn't see that we had any salvations this morning, but for the past 3 weeks, we just give God the glory for 3 salvations. And one of our traditions at church is each time we have somebody saved, we sing that hymn. There's a new name written down in glory. Of course, we sing it in Spanish, but I will never, ever get tired of singing that song. We can sing that song every Sunday, and I'll be okay with that. So that's somewhat of our dynamic. Just share a bit with you also about some individuals. I received a telephone call a number of years ago from a man by the name of Teddy Chang in Ecuador, Pastor Teddy Chang in Ecuador, concerned about his eldest son that had just arrived at the University of Valencia studying to get his doctorate degree in publicity. His testimony of his walk with the Lord, the Father, is that he He was saved later on in life, surrendered to ministry later on in life, and now being a pastor, his children didn't grow up in a Christian home, and so they have that period of such Christian influence. And so as Toper, Christopher is his name, but they call him Toper, as he leaves the home, he's lost. And so now that he's in Valencia, his father's concerned, and he calls me and asks if I would care for his son. And so I reach out to him. We go out and we have a meal together, and I invite him to the church, and I invite him to activities, and he's beginning to come and such like this. This was a number of years ago, and that day came when was able to share the gospel with him, and he accepted the Lord as Savior. Well, we fast forward till today, and his other brother and his sister, so now all of their children are there in Valencia, and all of their children are in our church. And we believe that the daughter, Gabby, is saved, but we feel like Henry is not. They all work in publicity. One has a doctorate, the other working on their master's. And the video that you'll see in this next hour was a service to us from them, and tried to pay them for it, but they would have none of it. And so I feel like even through some unfortunate time in Teddy Chang's life, as far as family members going, dying and such like that, was able to just reach out to him and spend time with him. Never met him face to face, but I really feel like I have a friend in Ecuador that I've never met personally, but just love his children. There's stories that are one after the other. Pastor Daniel, knowing that this being on the mission field, you have all these stories, and being in ministry, you have these stories of people and their needs and their successes and some of their shortcomings and some of the tragedies that we even perhaps go through. They're worth telling. I can share with you that not all the stories are rosy. Not all of them are fun. We just finished up a building program that took a number of years, I would say 3 years, maybe 4 since the time of purchase, and it was taxing on the church. I come from a construction background, and I'll be the first to admit, perhaps I was out of balance. Perhaps I was more construction than I was fulfilling the duties of the church. But you know, the whole step of the way through the going on 11 years now of the church, throughout the history of IBBT is the initials of our church, the Iglesia Bautista Biblica de Torrent, but that's like a mouthful. So if I can just say IBBT, it'd be easier. Throughout the history of the church, the Lord has provided the needs that He has saw fit within the church. For example, one time we had immigration issues. He brought to the church, and now as a member, longtime member, an immigration lawyer. And such like that. Well, during this time of construction, he brought to the church men that were apt to teach and preached well. And so they helped me carry on throughout this time. It was tough on Leslie. I spent a lot of time there at the church, and there were some that were in disagreement with the way I was handling things. And they asked here near the end of the project, they asked if they could sit down and chat with us. Now it was a couple. I suppose I could use their names. We'll just call them.
Are we videotaping that?
Yeah, but pero no hablan en inglés, entonces no pasa nada. They don't speak English, and so it's no big deal. But it's rather it's an observation and sharing with you our experience, and it's not chismar. We're not gossiping. It's just what we lived out. And so this couple was not at all as faithful as you folks here are in the first hour. You know, you seek to be Christ followers, and you do that day in and day out. Well, these folks were month in and month out maybe. And at the time they were kind of pulled back from the church, and they were disgruntled with us. And so they asked to sit down and have some time with us. And it was about an hour of listening to this gal how that I was not doing right, and that I was hurting the church, and that she wasn't going to be part of our new church, our church and the new church building, because she just didn't agree with the way things were. In fact, she went on to say that I need to increase in my ability to speak the Spanish language, because I'm doing a disservice to the Lord when I mispronounce Bible terms and things in the Spanish Bible. And she, for an hour, was giving it to us. And so we sat there, and I sat, and at the time, let me tell you, we had our missionary cap on. And we sought out in the beginning to be full of grace and forgiveness. And at that hour, there was a lot of giving of grace, and there was a lot of forgiveness before it was even asked, let me tell you. And she began, and she just continued to tell us all of the reasons why we were not doing well. And they were not satisfied with us. And Leslie, being a wonderful wife, she was a bit fit to be tied. Silently, sure, her blood was boiling, because this lady was, working over her husband and such like that. And but let me tell you, today they're as faithful as they can be in church. He's a head usher. It's a new ministry that we've started, and he's also in charge of transportation of going out and bringing in the elderly that live a distance away and don't have means of transportation, the handicapped that can't get to us, and others that are just unable to make it. And so he has his niche in ministry. I don't know if you want to share a little bit about Lucy or anything about it.
No, that's okay.
All right. So let me just say, we fight for the ministry. We struggle week in, week out still with the language, and some would scratch their head at that because it's Spanish. I mean, if you grew up in Tucson, you ought to just be able to by default speak Spanish. Well, some are apt and some aren't, and we ain't. But we fight for it, and we get to about 9, 10 o'clock at night, and it's just, we need to go to English, because it's just the ability just kind of takes a dive, for us to communicate well. And it's important for us. It is imprescindible. What's the word? We have no other choice but to communicate well, because that's who we are and what we do. We need to communicate the Word of God. We need to communicate to them in Spanish in a way to shepherd them well and effectively. And when you struggle, there's an inner battle going on that is difficult to explain to you if you have not been there. But it's all worth it. It's all worth it. Some of the struggles maybe that you've come up against, and some of the issues that you deal with, perhaps. I think I'm talking too much.
No, I don't think you're talking too much. No, I mean, there's just that, we do Bible studies, and sometimes while I'm trying to figure out the word or trying to figure out a conjugation, and the ladies want to help me, and so they just start trying to talk for me, and I'm like, no, just wait a minute, and so there's a little bit of impatience sometimes on their part, because they talk fast, and I have to think about what I'm saying and what the words are and what tense and what conjugation of the verb I'm using, and so my words are chosen more slowly than what they do, and so sometimes they want to just take over and talk over me and say what they think it is I'm trying to say or whatever. But it's a process of just my growth, and I think their growth as well. They're having to learn to be more patient, but it's probably the thing we'll continue to have to work on the whole time we're in Spain, because we didn't grow up speaking Spanish, and so it's something that there's new words, and we do our ladies Bible study every week, and it never fails. Every week someone will say a word, and I'm like, wait, what was that word? I'm like, oh, I got a new word, and I write it down. So it's a constant learning experience.
Yeah, because the Spanish in the Latin countries, while yet you can come from a Latin country into Spain and communicate just fine and get along just fine, but I'm telling you that there's a cultural difference. In the Latin countries, they'll take and they'll Spanishify an English word. Pijamas, it's pajamas, right? Un carro is a car. But in Spain, un carro is what you hook to your horses, and it's the old school stagecoach type thing, or the
Like
coach.
a little coat wagon, a little
That's a
horse
carro.
buggy.
And a carricoche, what's a carricoche?
Caricoche is a stroller.
Okay, so a coche is a car in Spain, but a car in Latin America is un carro. So there's these things that, you know, that it's understood and everything.
Even something simple like the word to throw something away. In Spanish, we say tirar. In this Latin Americans, they say botar. And so we had a Venezuelan family stay in our house, and she would use words that I'm like, I don't know what that word means. She's like, well, that means like when you're going to go do this and this. And I'm like, oh, well, in Spain, they use the word this. Because I'm teaching her Spanish while she's teaching me Spanish, because she doesn't know all the right words in Spain either, because the vocabulary is different.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I want to leave time for questions and such like that, and I'll wrap up just with two things, and that is one of the areas in that we're finding ourselves ministering was not at all on our radar. Was not something that we thought we would be involved in. It's not a bad thing. It's a joy to be able to minister in this way, but it was not something that we saw, nor was it taught in seminary. And that is loving on the people at the point of their need, and as far as the extranjeros are concerned, as far as the immigrants from the Latin countries, they come in and they're just seeking a better way of life for their families, and so they come in and they come to the church. Some have good motives, some just come to the church for handout, and you have to have good discernment. But the ones that the Lord leads you towards helping them and ministering to them, we have done it time and time again, and it is a joy. I can't tell you the last time that Leslie and I went for a period of time where it was just us in our home. We've opened up our home, and we've had migrant families living with us. Just as we have left Spain, we packed up our home. We're going to be searching for a different home when we come back. But as well, there was a Venezuelan family that was packing up their stuff and moving out of our home as well. We have a young man that I'm asking the Lord to call him into ministry because he has what it takes, but we're just waiting on the call. He lived with us for 1.5 years. He had nowhere to go. He came from Venezuela as well. We've had Colombians, we've had Hondurans living in our home, and it's just something we do with joy, but we never saw it coming. Mm-hmm. And so that's quite interesting as a missionary goes to the field with their thoughts of what they're going to do, and then God shows them the reality. One of the things that we desired from the beginning was to plant 3 churches. And we're on the first church plant, and I can tell you, I praise the Lord that right now our ministry is red hot. And it's kind of cool stepping back from it because it's in good hands. And at our shortcomings of language and just in our humanity and the things that we fail at, God shows himself strong, and he supersedes things, and he gets what he wants to get done, and the church is moving forward. And the church that you guys are part of and have been part of for years is doing well, and that church is very, very thankful for what you have done. I don't know if you feel like we are very appreciative, but I want after today for you to know that we appreciate you very, very much and could not do what we have done and what we desire to do in the future without your collaboration in it. So thank you from the bottom of our heart, and I'll end with this story and then open it up for questions. There's a young man that came to us about 1 year ago. His name's Alexis. He is a Frenchman, was born and raised in the city of Paris. He's working on his master's right now in mechanical engineering. When he came to us, he was fresh out of South Carolina or North Carolina. I don't remember which of the Carolinas, but he was there 6 months and just studying abroad, you know, like some of the college students enjoy doing. Well, when he left America, after 6 months of being in America, he spoke fluent English. Yeah, you got to guard your heart to be envy, you know. And then he moves, and he's going to the university there in Valencia. He doesn't speak Spanish when he arrives in Spain, but now he's fluent in Spanish. And while he was in the Carolinas, he began going to services with the family that hosted him, and he accepted the Lord as his Savior. Now, for a pragmatist to do this, that's something. That's saying something. Someone that has to see it, feel it, touch it, smell it, measure it, study it. For him to have a level of faith, obviously, is a gift from God. And he is a committed believer. So the family shared with him when he was leaving the Carolinas that we are going to pray for you because you're going back to Europe and it's going to be difficult for you. And we're going to pray that the Lord just takes care of you and places you where he would have you. And he came directly to IBBT, and he hasn't left. And I just have a sweet relationship with him, and we've become good friends. He's going to be leaving the country of Spain on the 17th of July, and I promise you I will keep a radar on where he is at. I haven't bugged him. You know what I mean. I haven't put a GPS chip on him. But my heart wants to stay connected with this young man. I believe God has something very, very special for him. And he comes to me the day that we're, last service 2 Sundays ago, and he says, I realize you're going to be leaving, and I don't know when the next time I'm going to see you. He says, but I've done something very American, and you're going to like it. And I said, well, what's that, Alexis? He says, I'm going to give you a thank you card. Something very foreign. To us, it's like, okay, thank you, no big
They
deal.
don't give greeting cards in Spain.
That's what we do.
So.
We don't do this in Spain. They don't do it in France. I think part of the reason that we're so close is we love ribbing each other about the struggle between the American and the French person. We sometimes butt heads, and so, but we do it in a loving way. And I'd like to share with you what he wrote, if I can get through this. He said, it looks like we won't see each other for a little while, and I thought it'd be reasonable to write you a thank you card. He said, after my big trip to the United States, I didn't expect to meet such people in Spain. He said, my Christian friends warned me that it was going to be very difficult for me when I get into Europe, and that they would be praying for me. However, God put me in your path. He said, you welcomed me, and you got to know me. And he says, you took me in and you listened to my stories and accompanied me along my Christian journey. He said, you helped me when I was struggling. Thank you for all this. He said, I enjoy the time. I have enjoyed the time that we spend together, and from the stories that we share, from the joking that we have had. He said, I just really enjoyed it. He said, thanks to IBBT, boy, it's difficult.
It's hard to read. He has really tiny writing. I've discovered
the importance of missionaries, and it gave me a solid foundation to keep living,
learning,
or to keep learning from the Bible. I've met some wonderful people, and I'm really happy to be part of this family. He said, I'm sincerely impressed by your presence in the face of your perseverance in the face of difficulty. In 6 months, I think I'm going to have this memorized. So you're the guinea pigs. I do apologize. But you get the tone of the young man's heart, right?
and your willingness.
He says, so I appreciate your sincerely impressed by your perseverance in the face of difficulty and your willingness to serve others. He says, I can't wait to see what God's plan is for you in IBBT. Bon voyage. And then the card says, buena suerte, which means good luck. And he crossed it out, and he says, God be with you. Now, this is somebody that has known the Lord for just a little over a year, has read through the Bible and continues to read through the Bible. And this is a sweet spot in our ministry. And so, any questions, comments, observations, suggestions, anything you have for us, sir?
One of the things that you and I, when we were just having a one-on-one conversation, you mentioned about a man that moved up there from Morocco. You know, he's ministering to Muslim people. How big is the influx of Muslims in Spain, and how is that a part of your ministry?
Yeah. Spain has a rich history of Islam, of the Muslim people. Even before the Catholics were had taken over, of course, in the Inquisition and such like that. And so it would be stronger down in the southern part of Spain in Andalusia. Before Osama bin Laden was taken out by the American government, he had urged his people to take back Andalusia. It would be a state like take back Texas.
By 2025.
And so it's a strong presence, and we have Muslims all around us. And he's doing a wonderful job. He understands that his ministry is not a ministry that yields fruit right away, but it's a long road. In fact, last month we had, for a number of services, Rashid and Saeed, two friends attending our services, and they didn't understand Spanish, but they trusted this Peruvian that spoke fluent in their language.
Mm-hmm. Occasionally on the news, I see down in the border, Spain and Morocco has a channel that's only like 9 miles long or something. And they are constantly having to, well, and actually on the Moroccan side, on the African side, there's 2 Spanish cities. And they're always showing on the TV that Moroccans climbing the walls, climbing the fences, swimming across, trying to get into Spain, get out of Morocco, much like we see on the TV on the border
There's a large
here.
number
They
of-
have that happening, not in that scale, but
Yeah.
they have that happening in the border there, the Moroccans trying to get into Spain.
Yeah, a large number of Muslims in our country. Next question, sir.
With the solid base of Catholicism where you're at, is that church, like so much of Europe, their attendance down in that, or is it still a thriving church that, again, with the Catholicism, to me, it's, I know that's, you know, their base religion. Are they seeing the decline, and are you able to kind of fish that pond? Or are they a vibrant church still?
No, the only vibrancy that they have is the support of the Spanish government. One example of this would be in the city of Segovia. It's a very touristic city. It's where the Muslims built the aqueduct and such, and the castle that the Christians would took over. The Romans, I'm sorry, built the aqueduct that still stands today, and then the Muslims would build the cathedral where the castle where Christopher Columbus was commissioned out of. The Catholics later took it over. I asked a lady giving a tour going into the cathedral, which is a Gothic-style cathedral, just massive in size, what the membership count was. And I said it as a Baptist. And I knew she would receive it as a Catholic and not understand what I was saying. But she said, I don't know, but I will ask and I'll get back with you. She got back with me, and she said there's 8 members to the Catholic Church.
And this is a huge Catholic church.
And so the little Catholic ladies are faithful. Some of them are faithful, but Spaniards are Catholic by default, and that's pretty much it. And they, for the most part, have a bad taste in their mouth for the history of the Catholic Church. Next question. Yes, ma'am.
Are you able to reach out to the college-age students? You able to reach out to them, and are they attending your church?
We do have college-age students that are with us. I wouldn't say that we have a college ministry there on the campus, but I like the suggestion. It's a good idea.
Universities really are, we're in a suburb to the west, and the universities are all on the far east side. So it's, those that do come, they have to be committed to it, because it's about 40-minute commute in the morning to get from where the university area is to where our church is. But we do have several that come because, and over the years too, we had a group of students years ago, all those girls, remember, some of them were med students
Yeah.
and some of them were, the main college in Valencia there is a lot of architectural and engineering and stuff like that, but we do occasionally have some that will make the trek because it's important to them.
Yeah. I'll end by saying this, maybe get, you can know our church just a little bit more, and in the video it'll depict it. But what really resonated with me with what Mrs. Christian had shared with Leslie and I before the Sunday school, and how that this church became her church, for how welcoming this church was to her, and how inviting it was, and how that she could come in and be recognized and noticed, and people would take interest. That's the church that we want to be. We have members that would testify of that time and time again, and I can tell you that that's not because we're excellent at it. That's how the Lord has directed our church. We want to be a church that welcomes all, and just changes their focus of worship towards Christ from off of themselves. Pastor.
Thank you so much. I'd encourage you to be available, but I'd encourage you get around, ask them whatever other questions, or get to know them during the breakfast time, after the morning service, all that.